My name is Ellie. I'm 22 years old, the youngest of 3 kids, and the only daughter in a family where strength has always been measured in volume and muscle. My older brothers, Nathan and Luke, were the golden boys, football stars in high school, loud, confident, the kind of sons who made my father puff out his chest with pride at every family barbecue. And then there was me. I wasn't weak, not in the way my mother accused, but I was different. While they were wrestling in the backyard, I was sitting under the tree sketching the scene. While Dad bragged about Nathan's bench press, I was in the kitchen helping Mom with dinner, unnoticed. I was quieter, softer, someone who always thought too much before speaking. It wasn't that I hated who I was, it was just that, in my family's eyes, my traits didn't count. My father used to shake his head whenever I brought home straight A's. Books won't make you tough, Ellie. Out there, the world doesn't care how well you can write an essay. My mother was harsher. She'd watch me struggling to carry the grocery bags and sigh, God help you, Ellie. If life ever demands more from you than brains, you'll break. I used to laugh it off, pretend it didn't sting, but inside, every word settled like a stone in my chest. By the time I turned 21, I'd built a whole identity around being the family disappointment. Nathan was studying engineering, Luke had landed a police academy spot, and Dad couldn't stop bragging about both. Meanwhile, I was working part-time at a bookstore, taking night classes in literature, still living at home. I remember one night in particular, Luke had just announced he'd been promoted to squad leader in his training program. The whole dinner table erupted in applause. Mom beamed, Dad clapped him on the back, pride practically glowing off him. Then Mom's gaze shifted to me, sitting quiet at the end of the table. And what about you, Ellie? She asked, voice laced with that sharpness I'd come to dread. Still selling paperbacks to high school kids? The table chuckled, good-natured to them, humiliating to me. I laughed too, pretending it didn't matter. But later that night, alone in my room, I cried into my pillow. That was the night the seed was planted, the night I thought, what if I did something so un-me they couldn't ignore it? What if I shocked them all? It started as a fantasy, but the idea grew roots. Because the truth was, I didn't just want to prove them wrong, I wanted to prove it to myself. For so long, I'd believed their voices, that I was too soft, too weak, too small to handle real challenges, but some part of me, a buried, defiant spark, refused to die. That spark whispered, what if they're wrong about you? What if you're stronger than you think? I researched quietly at first. Military websites, fitness blogs, stories from women who had gone through bootcamp and come out warriors. The more I read, the more I realized that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't doomed to be the fragile one forever. But the moment I told my family, that spark nearly went out. I'd expected shock, maybe laughter. I wasn't prepared for the rage. You, in the army? Nathan had snorted, nearly choking on his drink. Ellie, you get winded climbing stairs. Luke had just smirked, they'll eat her alive. And Mom, well, you already know what she said, that I was too weak, that I'd embarrass the family, that I'd quit. That night, I sat on my bed staring at the enlistment papers I'd already signed, my hands shaking. Doubt crept in like a cold wind. But then I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red from crying, but beneath the tears was something else, something I'd never seen before. Determination. I whispered it to my reflection, like a promise only I could hear. I'll survive, no matter what. Even if I come last, even if I crawl, I'll survive. That's who I was before boot camp, the underestimated daughter, the invisible sister, the quiet girl with more doubt than belief. But the moment I stepped onto that bus, everything began to change. And nothing could have prepared me for what was coming. The morning I left for boot camp felt like stepping onto a stage where the audience had already decided I was going to fail. My brothers didn't even bother waking up to see me off. I remember standing in the kitchen with my duffel bag slung over my shoulder, the smell of burnt toast lingering in the air, while my mom sat at the table sipping her coffee like it was any other day. You can still back out, Ellie, she said casually, not even looking up from her mug. Nobody would blame you. It's better to admit your limits now than make a fool of yourself later. Her words landed like a punch, but I forced myself to swallow the sting. I'm not backing out. Mom, I'm already signed up. She finally looked at me, eyes cold. You're chasing something that isn't you. And when you come home broken, don't expect me to say I didn't warn you. I walked out without saying goodbye. On the bus to training, surrounded by strangers, I replayed her words over and over. My stomach churned. Maybe she was right. Maybe this was a mistake. But then I remembered the smirk on Luke's face, Nathan's laughter, the way Dad always dismissed me, and anger flared. No, not this time. I won't give them the satisfaction. Bootcamp didn't waste time proving how unprepared I was. The very first morning, we were dragged out of bed at 4:30 a.m. Thrown into push-ups, sprints, drills. Sweat burned my eyes, my arms trembled, and within minutes, I was falling behind. Pick it up, recruit, the drill sergeant bellowed, voice sharp as thunder. I stumbled, lungs on fire. Everyone else seemed to push forward while I lagged at the back, gasping, red-faced, my body screaming at me to quit. The whispers started. She's not gonna last a week. Too slow. Dead weight. Every word sliced through me like a blade. But what hurt worse was the echo of my mom's voice in my head, you'll make a fool of yourself. That night, lying on the thin mattress, body aching, I fought back tears. For a moment, I thought about packing it in, walking away, saving myself the humiliation. But then I thought of that mirror back home, the promise I'd whispered, I'll survive, no matter what. So I clenched my fists, swallowed the tears, and decided that even if I came dead last, I would not quit. That choice became my anchor. Every day, every drill, every insult, I clung to it like my life depended on it. And slowly, something inside me began to shift. 2 weeks into training, I faced my first breaking point. It was obstacle course day. The sun was merciless, baking the dirt into hard cracks beneath our boots. We were ordered to sprint, climb, crawl, and push through every barrier like our lives depended on it. I was terrified. Heights had never been my strength, and halfway through the course, I found myself staring up at a 12-foot wall. The others scaled it like it was nothing. Me? My palms were slick, my arms weak. I jumped, grasped the rope, and slipped almost immediately, falling hard onto my back. The laughter came instantly. Pathetic. She's done. Even the sergeant shook his head, barking, recruit Ellie, if you can't get over this wall, you're wasting my time. My chest heaved, tears threatening. For a moment, all I wanted was to run, to disappear. But then I saw Luke's smirk in my mind, my mother's disappointed eyes, the memory of Nathan's mocking voice, and something snapped. No, I whispered to myself, gripping the rope again. My arms shook violently as I pulled myself upward, inch by inch. My knees scraped, my breath came ragged, but I refused to let go. Halfway up, my grip faltered, and I nearly slipped, but a voice inside screamed louder than the pain, don't you dare quit, Ellie. With a guttural yell, I pushed through, hauled my leg over the top, and dragged myself onto the wall. My body collapsed there, chest pounding, but I'd made it. The other recruits weren't cheering, but I saw something in their eyes as I jumped down, surprise. Maybe I wasn't strong, maybe I wasn't fast, but I was still there, still fighting. That night, the sergeant stopped me as we lined up. His voice was low, almost grudging. You're not the best, recruit, but you've got grit. Don't lose it. Those words lit something in me. For the first time, someone saw more than weakness. It was small, just a spark, but it was enough to keep me moving. Enough to prove to myself that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the fragile girl my family thought I was. The days blurred into one endless loop of sweat, shouting, and aching muscles, but with every sunrise, something inside me hardened. I wasn't getting faster or stronger as quickly as the others, but I refused to give up. And still, the whispers followed me like shadows. During chow, I'd catch recruits snickering when I limped in last from drills. At night, some would mutter, she won't last another week, loud enough for me to hear. The cruelest came from a girl named Madison. She was tall, athletic, the kind who'd been running track since middle school. She'd glance at me with pitying eyes and say, Ellie, honestly, you should go home. You're dragging everyone down." Her words hit harder than the drills, not because she was wrong, but because part of me believed her. One night, after lights out, I lay staring at the ceiling, fighting tears. My body ached so badly it felt broken. My hands were blistered, my knees raw, my lungs constantly burning. The thought whispered louder than ever, "Quit. Just quit. Go home where it's safe." But then I remembered home. I pictured Mom's smirk as I walked through the door, broken and beaten. My brothers laughing, Dad shaking his head. "Told you so, Ellie. You were never cut out for this." That vision stabbed me with something hotter than pain, rage. "No," I muttered into the darkness. My voice trembled, but my heart burned. I'd rather die here than prove them right. The next morning, I dragged myself out of bed before reveille and started running laps around the field alone. My legs screamed, my lungs begged me to stop, but I kept going. That's when I realized something: if I couldn't beat them with strength, I'd beat them with persistence. I would not quit, no matter how much it hurt. And slowly, painfully, the others began to notice. When I finished last in sprints but never collapsed, some of the whispers stopped. When I pushed through push-ups with trembling arms, some eyes lingered with reluctant respect. Even Madison, my harshest critic, began to fall silent. I was still the weakest, still the slowest, but I was becoming something they couldn't ignore. Unbreakable. Just when I thought I was finding my footing, the universe threw me another test. It was weapons training day. The sun was brutal, baking the firing range until the air shimmered. My hands trembled as I held the rifle. I'd never fired a gun before. The sergeant paced behind us, barking orders: "Focus your breathing, align your sights, squeeze, don't jerk the trigger." I tried, God, I tried, but my first shot went wide, then the second. By the fifth, I hadn't hit the target once. The sergeant's voice cut like a knife. "Recruit Ellie, are you even trying? At this rate, you're a liability to your squad." Heat rushed to my face. I wanted the ground to swallow me. Madison muttered under her breath, "Told you she doesn't belong here." Something inside me cracked, not just from the failure, but from the shame. That night, after lights out, I slipped into the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes ringed with exhaustion. My reflection looked like a stranger. I pressed my palms against the sink, whispering, "Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm wasting my time." And then I remembered my mother's voice again. "You'll embarrass yourself. You'll quit." I stared at that reflection harder, my jaw tightening. No, not yet. The next day, I swallowed my pride and asked one of the quieter recruits, a girl named Rivera, for help. She'd been hitting her marks perfectly since day one. "Can you show me what I'm doing wrong?" I asked, cheeks burning with embarrassment. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Hold the rifle like it's part of you. You're fighting it. Stop being scared of it." Her patience was a gift. She corrected my stance, steadied my hands, guided my breathing. For the first time, I hit the target, barely clipping the edge, but enough to matter. The sergeant noticed. He didn't smile, but he gave a short nod. "Better. Keep it up." It wasn't victory, but it was progress, and progress was something I could cling to. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something huge. Maybe I didn't need to be the best. Maybe survival, showing up again and again, no matter how many times I fell, was my real strength. I wasn't there yet, but I was on my way. And that scared my doubters more than anything. By week 6, something had shifted, not just in me, but around me. I still wasn't the fastest, the strongest, or the most skilled, but while others groaned, cursed, or complained under the sergeant's brutal routines, I showed up, always, every day. No matter how bad my body screamed, I dragged myself forward. Persistence started speaking louder than speed. One morning during a long-distance ruck march, we strapped on full packs and hit the trail. 25 pounds of gear pressed into my shoulders, biting into my skin, every step like fire up my calves. The pack felt heavier with each mile, and soon, I was at the back again, fighting tears. Then, halfway through, something unexpected happened. Rivera, my only real ally, dropped back and walked beside me. Don't stop, Ellie, she muttered between breaths. If you stop, I'll stop, and we're not failing this together. Her words lit a fuse inside me. For the first time, I wasn't alone. I forced my legs to keep moving, even when my vision blurred with sweat, and by the time we reached the finish line, I collapsed. But I wasn't last, not this time. That tiny victory exploded in my chest like fireworks. Later that day, the sergeant pulled me aside. His expression was as unreadable as always, but his words cut through me like sunlight breaking clouds. You're stubborn as hell, recruit. That's worth more than strength. Don't lose it. For the first time, I smiled, not out of pride, but relief. Maybe I wasn't failing after all. The other recruits noticed too. A few even nodded at me during chow. Silent acknowledgements I'd never gotten before. Madison still sneered, but I caught her watching me differently, like she couldn't figure out why I hadn't quit yet. At night, lying on my thin mattress, I whispered to myself, you're not the same girl who left home. And maybe, just maybe, I was starting to believe it. Just when I thought I was finally proving myself, bootcamp decided to break me. It was hell week, the hardest stretch yet. Minimal sleep, endless drills, and constant pressure designed to weed out the weak. On the second night, rain poured down in sheets, turning the training field into mud. We crawled through it on our stomachs, rifles clutched to our chests, lightning splitting the sky. Every inch forward felt like dragging a mountain. My body screamed for mercy, my arms shook uncontrollably, my knees bled raw, and mud filled my mouth and nose until I could barely breathe. Move it, Ellie, the sergeant roared over the storm. You stop, you die. I wanted to quit. God, I wanted to quit. For a split second, I froze, chest heaving, the mud sucking me down like quicksand. The thought crashed over me, I can't do this, I'm done, I don't belong here. And in that moment, my mother's voice echoed louder than the thunder. You're too weak, you'll embarrass yourself. I broke, tears mixed with the mud on my cheeks. I buried my face in the dirt, praying no one could see. But then, something happened. A hand grabbed my arm, yanking me forward. It was Rivera. Her face was streaked with mud, her eyes blazing. Don't you dare stop, Ellie, not now, not after everything. Her words slammed into me like a jolt of electricity. I forced my arms to move, one crawl, then another. Every inch felt impossible, but I kept going, fueled by her voice, by my promise, by every moment of doubt I refused to let win. By the time we reached the end of the course, I collapsed face first in the mud, sobbing. But here's the thing, I wasn't crying from defeat. I was crying because I hadn't quit. The sergeant's voice cut through the rain. Recruit Ellie, you're a mess, but you didn't give up. Remember this moment. That's soldier grit. Lying there in the mud, drenched and broken, I realized something profound. Strength wasn't about being fearless. It wasn't about never breaking. Strength was about crawling forward anyway, even when you're drowning in mud and doubt. That night, soaked and shivering in the barracks, I whispered to myself, this is who I am now. Not weak, not fragile, a fighter. And for the first time, I truly believed it. Graduation loomed closer with every passing day. Rumors flew through the barracks about the final evaluation, an endurance test designed to push every recruit past their limits. It was the wall we all had to climb before being called soldiers. And I was terrified. Despite everything I'd survived, doubt still clung to me. Every night I stared at the ceiling, whispering, what if I fail here? What if this is where they finally prove my mother right? The morning of the test, we stood in formation at dawn, our uniforms crisp but our nerves frayed. The air buzzed with tension. The sergeant strode in front of us, boots pounding like thunder. Today, you show us if you deserve to wear this uniform. Some of you will break, some will quit, but those who finish will know what it means to earn respect. We were handed heavy packs and rifles, then led to the starting line of a brutal course, miles of running, crawling, climbing, and carrying. My stomach knotted. Rivera leaned close and whispered, you've got this, Ellie. Just remember, you've already survived worse. I nodded, though my heart hammered in my chest. The whistle blew. The first mile nearly broke me. The pack dug into my shoulders, every step rattling through my bones. My legs screamed, my lungs burned. Recruits surged ahead, leaving me at the back again. But I kept moving, step by step, breath by breath. The obstacles blurred into pain. Crawl under wire, sprint through mud, climb another wall. I slipped, fell, scraped my knees raw. But every time I wanted to quit, I thought of Mom's voice, her mocking certainty that I'd fail. And rage pushed me forward. By the last leg of the course, I was barely upright. My uniform was torn, my body ached like it was made of glass. The final obstacle towered ahead, another 12-foot wall, the same kind that had almost broken me on week 2. The same wall I once thought I could never climb. My hands trembled as I grabbed the rope. I jumped, missed, fell hard on my back. Gasps rippled through the line of recruits waiting. "She's done," someone muttered. The sergeant's voice thundered, "This is it. Recruit, you make it over that wall, or you go home empty." I closed my eyes, pain surging through me. I heard my mother's laugh, my brother's taunts, my father's silence. And then I heard my own voice, from that night in the mirror, "I'll survive, no matter what." I stood, my legs shook, my arms felt like rubber, but I jumped again, fingers locking around the rope. This time, I didn't let go. Every inch upward was agony, my arms burned, my breath came ragged, but I kept pulling. My boots scraped, my knees banged against the wall, but I refused to stop. Finally, I threw my leg over the top. With a guttural cry, I hauled myself over and dropped down on the other side. The course was finished. I collapsed, tears mixing with sweat and dirt. But this time, I wasn't crying from shame. This time, I cried because I'd done it. Graduation day arrived. Rows of us stood in uniform, boots polished, hats straight, hearts pounding. The flags rippled in the breeze, families packed into the stands, and the commanding officers took their places. I searched the crowd and spotted them, my parents, Nathan, Luke. Their faces were unreadable, but I knew why they were there. Not for pride, for proof. They'd come to watch me stumble one last time. The ceremony began. Names were called, recruits stepped forward, salutes were exchanged. When my name rang out, "Recruit Ellie," I froze for a heartbeat, my chest tightening. Then I stepped forward, my boots struck the pavement with a steady rhythm, my uniform sharp, my chin high. The sergeant major stood waiting, his eyes, hard as stone, locked on mine. For a moment, silence stretched. And then, he raised his hand, a sharp, precise salute. "To Colonel Ellie," he said loudly enough for the crowd to hear, "the recruit who refused to quit." Gasps rippled through the audience. My mother's face went pale, Nathan and Luke's mouths dropped open. My father shifted uncomfortably, jaw tight. The moment felt unreal, like time itself had slowed. I returned the salute, my hand trembling but firm. My eyes burned, but I held them high, letting the weight of that moment crash through me. This wasn't just recognition, this was victory. As I marched back into formation, I caught my mother's gaze, her lips parted, like she wanted to say something, but no words came. For once, she was speechless. And inside me, something that had been broken for years finally healed. Because I had proven them wrong, not with words, but with every scar, every bruise, every ounce of grit it had taken to stand here today. And no one could take that from me. When the ceremony ended, the recruits were dismissed to their families. Laughter, cheers, hugs, it was chaos. Rivera's parents rushed to her with flowers. Madison's family showered her in praise. I walked slowly toward mine, my boots heavy, my heart louder than the noise around me. My mom was the first to speak. Her voice was quiet, almost hesitant. "Ellie, she stopped, biting her lip like she couldn't find the words. Nathan crossed his arms, still trying to wear his smirk, but even he couldn't mask the shock in his eyes. Luke shoved his hands in his pockets, looking away. My dad stood stiff, expression unreadable. For the first time in my life, they didn't look at me like I was fragile. They didn't look at me like I was invisible. They looked at me like they didn't know who I was anymore. And maybe that was the point. I didn't smile. I didn't need to. I just stood tall, the weight of the salute still fresh on my skin, the words recruit who refused to quit echoing in my head. I wasn't their fragile daughter anymore. I wasn't the weak sister. I was me, and I was enough. The days that followed were strange. At home, the silence was thicker than ever. My mother avoided the topic, almost embarrassed by her own words now that I'd proved her wrong. Nathan teased less. Luke stopped smirking. Dad never admitted it. But once, I caught him watching me with something new in his eyes: respect. It didn't matter, because the truth was, I hadn't done this for them. I'd done it for me. Every fall, every bruise, every failure, I'd carried them like scars, but they weren't proof of weakness anymore. They were proof of survival. I finally understood something I'd been blind to my whole life. Strength isn't about being perfect. It's not about never stumbling. Strength is about dragging yourself forward when every voice, including your own, tells you to stop. Strength is refusing to quit, even when you're last. Strength is choosing to rise again, and again. And the girl who once cried in her bedroom because her family called her weak, she was gone. What stood in her place was a soldier. I'm not here to say everything magically healed. My family didn't suddenly shower me with praise, didn't rewrite the past. They were who they were, but no, that no longer defined me. Because for the first time in my life, I defined myself. And I defined myself as unbreakable. So if you're reading this, wondering if you'll ever be enough, wondering if the voices around you are right about your limits, hear me when I say this. They don't get to decide who you are. You do. Even if you're last, even if you stumble 1,000 times, even if they laugh at you, mock you, doubt you, keep going. Because someday, you'll look back at the wall you thought you'd never climb, the storm you thought would drown you, and realize you didn't just survive, you became stronger because of it. And that's a victory no one can take away.